Hello, and welcome to the last of our lessons about the planets. Planets lesson number 7, and we're looking at the 8th planet in our solar system, Neptune, today. And I have been really looking forward to today's lesson. I've really been looking forward to it. I'm very excited about the activities that we're going to be trying out today. So before we start, it is possible that you might not have all of the things together that you're going to need for today's lesson. So let's go through what you're going to need, what you're going to require. Some of it was listed, most of it was listed actually on the description on the lesson today. So let's do the practical stuff first. We're going to be creating a piece of music in a little while and a sort of soundscape. And for that, you're going to need materials to do it with. Now, what I've brought along with me is I've got a cup of water with a straw in it so that I can make bubbly sounds. I have, actually, it's my lemon squeezer, the bottom part of my lemon squeezer with a spoon that I can ting. It's a bit triangly on the handle, but it has a different sound elsewhere. So I've got something that I can hit there. I've got tissue paper to make a noise with, and you can't go wrong with a bit of bubble wrap. And I've got giant bubble wrap to pop. So different sounds, different sorts of sounds, but I've got bits and pieces to make sounds with. Now, it'd be great if you could scurry off and go and find some bits and pieces that you can make sounds with if you haven't already. Okay. The other thing is, just as usual, we have a worksheet to accompany today's lesson. You can see how we've got our worksheet there. And it's got lots of information, and it's also got the activities that we're going to be doing today. We've got a little listening activity here as well. And so you can use the worksheet. However, you might not want to use the worksheet. You might not have got printed off. You might not have access to it. As always, a piece of paper, pen, pencil will absolutely suffice. So use that if you haven't got the worksheet. That's absolutely fine. Okay. Shall we get started? Have you got all your bits and bobs together? Let's hope so. Okay, let's have a little look at what we're going to be doing. So first of all, we're going to leave the music for a little while, and we're going to have a look at Neptune the god, because this will give you a bit more time to find things as well and stuff, and because you can just be listening. So Neptune the god. Neptune is a Roman god. So we've gone back to the Roman gods. Uranus, as you might remember, was a Greek god, and it's the only planet named after a Greek god. All of the rest were named after Roman gods. And here we have another Roman god, Neptune, who is the god of water. And it's first referenced as him being associated with water in 399 BCE. So he's very similar to the Greek god Poseidon. He is the brother of Pluto and Jupiter. He's a son of Saturn, and Neptune actually means moist in Latin. He lives in a golden palace at the bottom of the sea, and if any of you have watched Disney films, you may have noticed that already. But he lives in a golden palace at the bottom of the sea, and he's often depicted as an older man with a long beard, and he sometimes has fish and other sea creatures around him. And very often you will see him when he's sort of moving around riding a seashell chariot pulled by seahorses. You can see in the picture there that he has a trident. So he's got his trident, three-pronged thing, uses it to smash up rocks, make waves, create new bodies of water, and also to create fierce storms. So you don't want to upset Neptune because he can whip up a huge storm. He's referenced in a lot of more modern literature. I mean, you've only got to think of films and books and things like The Little Mermaid, and you know that Neptune's in there. And there is a special festival named after Neptune. Neptunalia is a festival held in honor of Neptune on the 23rd of July every year. So that tells us a little bit about Neptune. He is the god of water, and you sort of think of that watery theme when you perhaps look at the planet itself. I don't know. Do you think water when you look at Neptune, when you see all that blue swirliness? Possibly so. Neptune, the planet, it's the 8th planet from the sun, and it's the only planet in the solar system that you can't actually see with the naked eye. It's dark, it's cold, it's got supersonic winds. Not somewhere you'd want to visit, perhaps. And it's not conducive to life as we know it, which is not a surprise really when you think about that, those supersonic winds, and it's dark and it's cold. It takes 165 Earth years to orbit the sun, and it takes sunlight 4 hours to travel from the sun to Neptune. One day on Neptune takes about 16 Earth hours, and Neptune, like a lot of the other planets, that sort of these bigger planets as further out into the solar system, has rings. You don't see them. It's not like other planets like Saturn, where you've got those rings that are really obvious, but it has got rings. Neptune has 5 main rings. Most of the planet is made up of hot, dense fluid of icy materials like water and methane and ammonia. And scientists think that there might be an ocean of super hot water under Neptune's cold clouds. And the reason that this super hot water doesn't boil away is due to the incredibly high pressures which keep it sort of locked in. It looks very similar to Uranus, and as I say, is not really conducive to life as we would know it. It has 16 known moons. And these moons, the largest of which is Triton, which was discovered in 10th of October 1846, so it was quite a while ago. These 16 known moons are named after lesser sea gods and nymphs from Greek mythology. Triton is the only moon in the solar system that actually circles the planet in the opposite direction to the planet's rotation. So the planet goes one way and the moon goes the other, which suggests that Triton may have been an independent object that sort of was caught by Neptune, and its gravitational pull was pulled into its sort of system, so that it was a separate entity beforehand. And Triton is also extremely cold. Voyager 2, and you can see Voyager 2 at the bottom of the picture there. We discovered last week that Voyager 2 visited Uranus in 1986 and was there for about 6 hours. Voyager 2 also visited Neptune. It flew past Neptune in 1989 and again sent back as much information as it could in the brief period of time that it was actually there. In 1989, a large oval-shaped storm in the planet's southern hemisphere was dubbed the Great Dark Spot, and it was when it was discovered, and it was large enough to put the entire Earth into, but it's since disappeared and it's been replaced by other storms. And actually, if I take you back to the previous picture there, you can see a picture of sort of like an oval-shaped hole, and that would be a storm taking place on the planet. Okay, so we're going to do a little listening activity. We're going to listen to the opening of Neptune, and it's quite a special recording, this one, because just like a few lessons ago, we're going back to a recording of the actual music. So I've not created this one. We're going back to an acoustic recording from 1923. So this recording is over 102 years old, and it's Holst actually conducting the orchestra himself. So you're hearing the piece of music how Holst wanted it to be heard. Now, the only difference you could say is that because of the way that they had to record it, he had to reduce the size of the orchestra. So there's not 100 performers playing because he couldn't get 100 performers in the room to record it. So when you're listening to this, it is a reduced number of instruments playing. But what I want you to do is listen to the opening of this movement and think about, imagine what you think the planet looks like based on the music. So we know what the planet looks like in actual life. We've seen the images. We know what the planet should look like physically. But now think about, in your imagination, if you were to close your eyes and listen to the music and just listen to the music, what would you think of as a planet? Where would your imagination take you? So as you listen to it, have a think about that, and have a think about how the music makes you feel, and try and be as descriptive as you can. If you're using the worksheet, you've got a space at the bottom on the front page there for you to write down your ideas, but you can do it just as well on a piece of paper, and using a pen or a pencil to write down your ideas. So think about, what does this make you think of? How do you imagine the planet to look based on just the music, and how does the music make you feel? So I'm going to disappear while you listen to it. We'll only listen to it the once, but I will play you a reasonably big chunk of the music. So here we go. Takes a little while to come in. Okay, I'll stop it there because it's about 5.5 minutes long as a whole piece, and we don't want to hear the whole piece right this minute, perhaps. So, what have you come up with? Well, you can't be wrong, because whatever you've written down, however it makes you feel, is right, because it's how it makes you feel. And each of us will feel differently. Each of us will have a different interpretation of what we're hearing, and it can't be wrong. So when I'm listening to it, I don't know, it feels very mysterious. It feels very out of this world, very ethereal, sort of not real, floaty, um, mysterious is the best way of describing it. And actually, Holst describes the title. It's in the title, Neptune, the mystic. Okay, that mystery, the mysteriousness of it. It really can sort of conveys that through the music. And what do I think of as a planet? Well, it's quite calm. I don't see these big winds and supersonic storms and all this sort of stuff that we know is associated with the planet. I don't feel like that's the planet that we're hearing described through the music, because it's all quite calm. And I'm not necessarily thinking of water either, because there's nothing within the music. Perhaps, well, there might be. There's sort of that, the harp and the celeste that are sort of twinkling away in the background maybe could be a bit watery, possibly. I don't know. Everybody's interpretation is different. Everybody will feel differently about the music that they've just heard. So let me tell you a little bit about the music that Holst wrote, so that you can understand the context a bit more before we have a go at creating something ourselves. So the music is quiet throughout this movement. It might not have seemed particularly quiet on the recording just then, but that's because I'd made sure I'd turned it up fairly loud so that you could hear it. But the music is quiet throughout the movement, and Holst actually instructs the orchestra to play sempre PP. Sempre means throughout, and PP means pianissimo, very quiet. So he's actually telling them all, keep the noise down. It's the only movement out of all of the Planet suite that doesn't really have a theme or a melody. I suppose you could have that da 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 da, might be considered a theme or a musical idea that keeps returning, but that's it. There isn't anything else in there that you could say is like a hook that you can sort of go, yes, that's that. There's a lot of dissonance in there. A dissonance is sort of clashing notes where it clashes against each other. Dissonance is used to convey all sorts of things, tension, anxiety, things like that. But there is this dissonance, and we can describe it as something called bitonal. Bitonal means that you have two keys going at the same time, two different scales. So you could have like C major and G major going at the same time to create this dissonance, this clashing idea. It uses a 5/4 time signature. That means 5 beats in a bar. And we came across this when we were listening to the music from Mars. And in Mars, we had 2 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it was sort of split up into this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in this one, in Neptune, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It gives it just a slightly different feel to it, because of the way that that 5 is broken up. It's a bit otherworldly, which is how I sort of described it. The harp and the celeste are playing arpeggios, so chords that are broken up in the background, and there's these chords that are sort of like, you could describe them as oscillating, I suppose. That's a big posh word, where you just sort of just going round and round, and it creates this mystical sound. And there's lots of delicate sort of swirling sounds going on in the upper strings, which also add to this, while other instruments are playing long notes in the background. In the middle of the piece, and we haven't quite got to the middle, Holst introduces a female choir who is singing long notes in the background as well. And his choir isn't on stage. This is really important. He's done something really bit out there, really. He's got the choir standing at the side of the stage singing rather than on the stage. So it gives, again, this otherworldly etherealness, because they're not physically on the stage at the time. Towards the end, the voices sing a repeated pattern, which they continue all the way through until all of the instruments in the orchestra have stopped playing. And it's repeated until that very last sort of sound. And then what happens is the sound of the voices just fades away. And what Holst actually instructed was, and I'm going to read this so that I get it 100% right. He said that the female chorus should be placed in an adjoining room, well screened from the audience, the door of which is to be left open until the last bar of the piece, when it is to be slowly and silently closed. So you close that sound off. And if I just find for you, sort of towards the end of the piece, the voices singing. see what I mean about those voices, that otherworldliness. And if we move just towards the very end, see if I can get that. Voices on their own, and they fade away. And that was really groundbreaking because, you know, people didn't do things like that. That was a really sort of out there idea, to have this idea of the voices off stage and then these doors gradually being closed to sort of close off the sound and for them to just fade away into the distance. Very, very clever idea. And this movement is so different to everything that we've heard before. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and they were saying that this is actually their favourite movement out of all of the 7, because it is just, I think, a bit out there, which is amazing. So what are we going to do? Well, we are going to have a go at actually creating a soundscape using homemade percussion and sounds, your voice, the things that I just talked about, you know, at the beginning of the lesson. So I've got my bubbles, I've got my metal sounds, I've got my poppy sounds, I've got my scrunchy sounds. I've got lots of different sounds that I can use to create a soundscape. Now, a soundscape, we're just trying to create an idea of what the planet might sound like. So we've got Holst's interpretation of what the planet might sound like. Now we're going to have a go at our own. So I've got a track that I've created, and you've got here sounds. And that's going to play in the background. And then what we're going to do is create sounds over the top. So if I've got my bubbles, and then I could use my paper scrunch. And my popping. So, as the music is playing, use your sounds to see what you can create. You are composing a soundscape over the top of what you're hearing. Have a go. See what you come up with. How was that? Did you enjoy that? I hope you did. It's great composing things. And the thing is with that, there is no right or wrong. You can make whatever sounds you want to interpret the planet, excuse me, however you wish. And you could use your voice as well. I was doing some sounds and some sounds in there as well. And there's all sorts of sounds that you could make with your voice to sort of create wind sounds like that, or whistlings, or boom, boom. You know, it sounds like that. You could explore it. Now, that soundtrack, that sort of basic soundtrack in the background that I've created, is on the website. So if you go under the live resources, live lessons page in resources, you will find both of the tracks that we've listened to today on there, and the worksheet as well. So everything you could possibly need to sort of go back in and explore Neptune a little bit more. But we're coming to the end of today's lesson. So what I think would be a really cool idea, and you might not agree with me, but I think this is really cool, is if you wanted to have a go at creating a graphic score for that soundscape that you've just created based on Neptune. Now, the next time you do it, it might be completely different, or you might decide you want to have a go at drawing a graphic score, a picture score, if you remember, to represent the different sounds, and then have a go at following your graphic score, and then maybe get somebody else using the same instruments, the same sounds that you've got, to create their own performance of your graphic score. And then you could look at how different their interpretation is of your symbols to what you envisaged. That would be really cool. Remember, if you do a graphic score for this, create some sort of key so people know what the different sounds are that you're representing. So if you've got bubbling water blowing through a straw, then you might draw little bubbles and then put at the bottom the little bubbles and say bubbling water, so that people know what it is that you're trying to indicate through your symbols. But it would be a great thing to sort of create and explore. So that's sort of an activity for you to have a go at afterwards. And maybe go back and have another play through Neptune, the sort of mystical soundtrack that we've just listened to again before you do that. So we've come to the end of today's lesson, and I've so enjoyed it. I've been looking forward to this one. We're going to take a couple of weeks off, and then we'll be back in the next half term to have a look at the seasons, is what we're going to be looking at next, the 4 seasons. And because we've got 4 weeks in that half term space, so that seemed perfect, a perfect thing to sort of slot in. If you've enjoyed these lessons based on the planets, please do think about perhaps joining the Theatre of Music Coffee page, and following us and supporting us, and join the Facebook page as well. But supporting us, just £5 a month, just to help towards the creation and the development of these lessons, so that we can offer even more and give even more to you, because we want to keep these lessons free for everybody to access, because music is such an important part of all of our lives. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you soon. But for now, bye for now.